I don't know what's going on.
Good morning, Udoka. Just so you know, we are recording and we're also currently live. The meeting will start in a few minutes.
Good morning, thank you.
Hi all, it's John Dwyer. Good morning.
Good morning, John. Good morning, Keith. Just so you know, we're recording and we're live, and we'll be starting the meeting in just a few minutes.
Good morning, Carla. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Good to see everybody. Tracy, are you feeling better?
I am.
Excellent. You sound better.
Yeah, I'm about 99% better.
And how's your husband doing?
He is 100% better.
All right. Excellent. That's great to hear.
I know.
Good morning, Anna and Rebecca. Thank you for joining us. We are recording and live, and we have quorum, so I believe we're good to start.
Okay, terrific. Good morning, everyone. How's
Good
everybody
morning.
doing in these surreal times that we're living in?
Happy New Year, Ann.
Happy New Year.
I'm hoping your daughter's been taking some beautiful photographs.
Thank you. All right, I hope you all are well. Let's go ahead and call the Policy and Funding meeting to order. I want to welcome everybody today. I'm the chair of the Policy and Funding Committee of the City of San Diego Commission for Arts and Culture. Thank you for joining us for our monthly meeting. We have particular protocols for our virtual meetings to ensure the highest possible level of transparency and access for the community. So please bear with us as we adjust to this format. I'd like to ask my colleagues in this committee, if you would, to please keep your video on throughout the meeting, as this will help us remain accessible to our audience. I would also ask the same of the participating commission staff. Now what we're going to do is a quick roll call to confirm that we have commissioner attendance. When I call your name, if you would, please unmute yourself and say present. Commissioner Rebecca Smith.
Present.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Commissioner Udoka Nwana.
Present, and sorry, my the video on this laptop I'm on does not work. I'm so sorry.
Okay, good morning. Happy New Year.
Good morning. Happy New Year.
Commissioner Keith Opstead.
Present.
Good morning. Commissioner Tyler Hughes.
Present. Good morning.
Good morning. And Commissioner Tracy DeZenzo.
I'm here. Good morning.
Good morning. Do I understand you're recovering from COVID?
I'm recovered. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. I'm really glad you're okay.
Yep. Me too.
Your family okay too?
Excuse me?
Your family is okay too?
Yeah, my husband actually recovered a lot faster than I did, and he didn't get a pinched nerve from coughing so much too. So he got through it a lot quicker than I did. but we're both healthy and very happy to be healthy.
Awesome. Okay, good. Okay, so let's see. Thank you. Your attendance has been noted. And also joining us today is the Commission Arts and Culture staff, which includes our Executive Director, Jonathan Gless, our Chief of Civic Arts Strategies, Christine Jones, our Interim Senior Arts and Culture Funding Manager, Carla Centeno, as well as representatives from the City Attorney's Office. Thank you all for being here as well. And before we get into today's agenda, I'm going to ask if Carla Centeno would please review the guidelines with us for today's meeting.
Yes, hello and good morning, everyone. As you may know, we're using the Zoom webinar platform, which is new for policy and funding. It's something that we'll be using moving forward. So I'll just be going over a few notes on what to expect. So in an effort to provide greater accessibility to members of the public, this platform allows us to allow members of the public to talk in person. So committee members, city staff, and authorized presenters are attending the meeting as panelists, and the meeting will function for them identically to the type of Zoom meeting. As a refresher, please note that the buttons on the control bar at the are at the bottom of the Zoom window. The camera icon is to activate your video. The microphone is to mute and unmute. Please remember to stay muted when you are not talking and to unmute yourself when you speak. You will also see the chat window open button, but please keep your chat window open at all times as you will be using the function to signal to chat when you would like to speak. You will also, oops, my bad, 1 second. Okay. We do recognize that there is a hand raising function. However, we request that you type and speak in the chat window for the record, and the chair will acknowledge requests in order. When wanting to make a motion, second a motion, or participate in a discussion, please type speak in the chat box, and Chair Bosler will call on you in the order it was entered. Please refrain from using the meeting chat for anything other than signaling what you'd like to speak in order to comply with the Brown Act. That is all. So it's very similar from our last format. It's just that now the public can interact via the Zoom webinar.
Okay, terrific. Thank you so much for that. Now we're going to move on to our non-agenda public comment. And the public was invited to submit comments on the agenda and the non-agenda items via a web form accessible through the agenda and the Commission's website. Members of the public may also join this meeting as webinar attendees. If members of the public have submitted comments in writing via this platform, then staff will read aloud those comments submitted per city public comment protocol. Now I'm going to ask Carla if she would please read aloud any of these non-agenda public comments or to call on any attendees who would like to provide comment.
Thank you. We did not receive any public comments submitted per the city public comment protocol. However, I do see that we have an attendee who would like to speak. So I'm just going to go over the rules for that. So I'm going to enable you to speak and send you a prompt to unmute yourself in order. When I call your name, please state your name on the record, and you will have 3 minutes to provide your comment, after which you will be placed on mute again. If you are joining via phone, please press *9 to raise your hand. I will call on you by the last 4 digits of your phone number. When I call on you, press *6 to unmute yourself. Please raise your hand now, and I would like, if you would like to provide non-agenda public comments. So Peter Kaminsky, I'm gonna unmute you now. I am just gonna set up my timer so that you know when your time is up. Okay. Okay, Peter, can you hear us?
Better?
Okay, yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead and
I
start.
shall start again. Good morning, council members and commissioners. My name is Peter Kaminsky, Balboa Park Cultural Partnership, and thank you for allowing me to speak today. While the year has just started, I have a number of items to update the committee regarding the Balboa Park Cultural Partnership. First, a quick pickup for this morning, especially given everything that has gone on recently. I really encourage you to visit loveinyourpark.com. This unique San Diego video by an unknown, we did not know this was occurring, but it's just amazing. It profiles Balboa Park exceptionally well while echoing a phenomenally positive message for parks and arts and culture. It really is something you should watch and share as widely as you can. Second, as always, we encourage you and anyone watching to engage with new and existing council members about the importance of arts and culture, a discussion that will be critically important as the budget process continues and as we look forward to protecting some of the most vulnerable arts and culture organisations within the city. Finally, some forward-looking plans. As a result of some strategic planning late last year, the Cultural Partnership have launched 3 new task force activities. These are activities where members of my board, cultural leaders from the park, join together and work hard to achieve a common goal. First is a discussion regarding creating a one-voice experience plan for Balboa Park. While in very early stages, we feel like this has an opportunity to create an important and unique focus for the park. Second, within that effort, and also as an opportunity to share resources and activities, will be a park-wide diversity and equity overlay called the IDEA Group, Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, Access, that will frame the experience plan and the operations of the organisations. And finally, a task force has been formed to identify how the resources of the cultural partnership and the many members may be brought to bear to assist organisations both within the park and throughout the city for potential shared services. The scope of this group is being considered and discussed as we speak. Thank you very much for everything you do, and thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Peter. And I do not see any other hand raised. So Commissioner Bosler, you're welcome to continue.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. And thank you, Peter. Well, Happy New Year to you. Okay, now our first action item with the meeting is going to be to approve the October 9th, 2020 committee meeting minutes. And I'm going to turn it back over to Carla in the event that there might be any public comment for this item that was submitted in writing, and or to call on any attendees that would like to provide comment.
So no comment in writing. If anyone would like to speak, please raise your hand. If you are calling in, please press *9 to raise your hand, and I will call on you by the last 4 digits of your phone number. When I call on you, press *6 to unmute yourself. So if anyone would like to provide comment, please raise your hand now or press *9. Okay, I'm not seeing any.
Okay, so our first item is the minutes. I hope everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes from our last meeting from October 9th. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve the minutes as they are? Commissioner Smith?
So moved. Thank you.
Thank you. And do I hear a second? Commissioner Opstad?
I second the motion.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for that. We now have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion regarding the minutes? Okay, seeing none, we're going to take a vote. I'm going to call your name, and if you would please respond aloud with yay, nay, or abstain. Remember that you do not have to have been present at the meeting in order to vote or discuss. Commissioner Rebecca Smith?
Yay.
Commissioner Nuana?
Yay.
Commissioner Opstad?
Yay.
Commissioner Hughes?
Yay.
And Commissioner DeZenzo?
Yay.
Okay, thank you. And my vote is a yay as well. The motion passes. Thank you for that. And I want to thank commissioners for being present today. Your patience and steadfastness in working through all these various platforms and being here to continue the business is a terrific asset to the city. So thank you for that. Okay, let's keep moving along. We're going in a brisk clip this morning, which is good. So now we're going to discuss arts and culture funding. And we're going to move on to item 4. So we have an action item today that is to recommend the slate of commission advisory panelist candidates to the Commission for Arts and Culture to evaluate proposals submitted in response to the fiscal year 22 organizational support program and the Creative Community San Diego request for proposals. Before we move on, I'd like to ask if there's any public comment to be read with respect to this agenda item.
None submitted in writing. If anyone in the public would like to share a comment, please raise your hand, or if you are dialing in, please press *9. Okay, no comment.
Okay, so let's see. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take action and recommend to the full commission the slate of commission advisory panelist candidates. Carla, did you want to provide some background on this before we get into that?
Yes, I'm happy to. And just so you know, there is a staff report that provides some information, so I hope you had an opportunity to read that. I'll just go over some of the details regarding what you're approving today. So as you may remember, staff released a call for panelists on November 6th, and that was to seek applications from diverse members of the San Diego community and experience local, national, binational arts and cultural professionals to lend their time and expertise to review and rank proposals from nonprofit organizations for our 2 funding categories: Organizational Support Program, OSP, and Creative Community San Diego, CCSD. The application portal closed on December 18th, and we had a total of 58 new panelists who met the eligibility requirements to move forward. The eligibility requirement states that paid employees and or contractors for any nonprofit receiving funds from the city through the commission within the past 1 year and or intending to apply for funds in this funding cycle cannot serve as funding application review panelists. So we did an internal check and removed anyone who did not meet the eligibility. So now the next step for you all is to recommend the slate of commission advisory panel candidates. After you approve it, then the slate will go to the Commission for Arts and Culture for approval. I'm sorry, after you recommend it, it will go to the Commission for approval. And then once approved by the Commission, staff will coordinate panel assignments, considering panelists' availability, panel size, conflict of interest, and a balanced representation of City Council areas, skill sets, and areas of expertise, prior history of serving as a panel, etc. Some approved panelists may not be assigned to a panel. Some panelists may be assigned to the role of understudy to assist if other panelists drop out. And some will not be appointed this year, but will remain in the approved pool for future consideration. Approved panelists candidates may be called upon to serve for up to 3 consecutive years without the need to reapply. This means that last year's approved slate may also be called upon to serve in the FY22 panels. So are there any questions regarding what I just went over? Okay, Chair Bosler, would you like to take it over?
Okay, terrific. And I noticed that Mr. Kaminsky jumped into our meeting with us. So just note that we may want to put his box on mute. Okay, happy for him to join us though, so. All right, now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take action and we're gonna recommend to the full commission the slate of commission advisory panelist candidates. Would anyone like to make a motion to recommend the slate of commission advisory panelist candidates to the full Commission for Arts and Culture to evaluate proposals submitted for fiscal year 22 OSP and CCSD? Let's see, Commissioner DeZenzo.
I would like to recommend this slate of panelists. That whole thing that you just said. I'd like to make a motion to do that.
Okay, terrific. Do we have a second? Commissioner Nuana.
I second.
Okay, terrific. So we have a motion and a second. Now, is there any discussion? No discussion, my goodness. All right. Commissioner Opstead, did you want to say?
I couldn't let it go by without having a little discussion.
Okay,
So
sure.
I just wanted to commend the fantastic pool of candidates. I had to put on my readers to read it because it was teeny tiny font, but the fact that with this many people in this current situation willing to volunteer their time, I'm absolutely thrilled. Not only do we have all of the districts of San Diego represented, but we also have additional feedback from beyond. So I'm really, really happy with this pool of candidates.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you for that. Commissioner Smith, was there something you wanted to offer?
Also wanted to add just my kudos to the staff and also to our community for stepping up for this. Keep in mind though, Keith, they're not volunteering, right? So, but I'm also really, really pleased by the diversity. You've got someone from Quigley Wines and Sharp Healthcare and Water Authority, like everybody really opting in, and we've always really wanted that kind of, you know, just sort of really about the community. And then also to see our associates from, as you said, Keith, Denver, Sacramento, Carlsbad, just really cool. And except for the fact that we don't get to participate in the process, I'm really happy that we're moving forward. So thank you.
Thank you for that. Commissioner DeZenzo, did you want to offer something?
You know, I'm just gonna say that I agree with Rebecca 100%. I really think that this slate of panelists is diverse and interesting, and I was actually really happy to read all of the the information about them, and it was very tiny, but but I managed to get through it. You get a bunch of people on here that are like 50 and older, so we're all like using readers and stuff now. But anyways, yeah, this panel list is great. So thank you.
Terrific. Commissioner Hughes.
I wanted to echo my colleagues and congratulate everybody for a really great panel. But I did have a question. I see a few organizations on here listed that are funded by the commission. And I thought that anybody who was an employee of a commission-funded organization was ineligible. So I just wanted to get some clarification on that. I see the Midway Museum, New Children's Museum, Women's Museum of California, and I think there may have been another one. But also love that there are people from Atlanta, New Jersey, that we've got our colleagues up in Carlsbad, and it's just really great to see a much more expanded pool. But I did want to get clarification on those organizations.
That's a good question, Commissioner Hughes. Carla or Jonathan, did one of y'all want to answer that?
Yeah, I'm happy to begin, and then Jonathan, if you would like to add, please feel free. So these panelists we did notice that, and we kept them in there only because they would not be serving in a panel that would be a conflict of interest. So if they're from the Midway Museum, they would not be serving on that panel. We would use their expertise in a completely different panel. So it was something that we considered, and we decided to move forward knowing that there would not be a conflict of interest because we would not directly put them in those panels. Jonathan, would you like to add anything?
That's spot on, Carla. The only thing that I would add is the criteria calls out in particular, Tyler, that people in financial decision-making positions. So we would never put an executive director, for example. These are professional staff, but they are not key decision makers when it comes to financial activities of the organizations.
Cool, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Jonathan, could you please address the piece about is it correct that panelists are being paid this year, and talk a little bit about that shift?
Absolutely, there is a trend to provide stipends for panelists across the country. It's one of the tools for providing greater access and equity for members of the community to participate on panels. Last year, we provide stipends for childcare, transportation, etc. Carla, where did we land this year on the amount available?
So we will be providing $150 for a full day of panels. These panels, we're organizing them so they'll be smaller. Panelists will not be serving a full day as we have historically in the past. These are going to be more specific. So if a panelist works a full day, which most likely they will not, it'll be up to $150 stipend.
And if we presume that this year it's going to be virtual, then that's still the case. We double or triple the transportation costs.
Basically, any funds that we had allocated for hotel, transit, that kind of thing, we're shifting. Thankfully, we had that in the budget this year. We're shifting to this per diem.
Okay. And then anything that's not used, will that go back into basically the general amount that is awarded to organizations, or what happens to whatever's not used?
Excuse me. That is a great question, Anne. Yes, the answer is it would remain in the pool. No, it wouldn't. I'm sorry. It's 8:45. No, because we're allocating funds for next year. Okay. So that's a part of this year's administrative budget. We can promise you, though, it's we don't have a lot of wiggle room. We actually had to really crunch the numbers to make sure that we could make this possible.
Okay. Okay, all right, thank you very much. Let's see, were there any other, let's see, Commissioner Poutre, did you want to weigh in on this?
Only to ask the question about stipends, and Jonathan answered it, so thank you.
Okay, terrific. Commissioner Hughes, did you want to say something else?
Yes, I did. And I think the stipends are fantastic. I think it professionalizes this so much more. I'm very in favor of that. I'm wondering, and this is just let's see how this year goes being virtual, but I wonder if we can continue to do these kinds of things virtually in the future, because then we can cast a much wider net. We can get folks from the Midwest, East Coast. Let's try to get as diverse a pool as possible. Not to tell you how to run your railroad, but it's just an idea, because I have found there is a lot of benefit to doing these virtual things. And I tell you, I'm now serving clients who live on the East Coast with much greater reliability and presence. So just a thought as we go through this process.
Thank you for that comment, Tyler. The staff is in complete agreement. We've been, as you know, all of our platforms are provided through IT. So as IT kind of builds out long-term policies for online platforms, I think we'll be able to get to that point. But I absolutely agree. And huge cost savings.
Okay, terrific. And then let's see, Commissioner Opstad.
Yes, I just wanted to thank you, Carla and Jonathan, for the clarification. When I was corrected earlier by Commissioner Smith, I connected the dots because I had mentioned, referred to the diverse panel as volunteers. I know we had the conversation, I believe it was in the October meeting, and I kind of figured that was the thing, but what happens when you assume anything. So thank you very much for the clarification.
Okay, wonderful, thank you. So unless there's any other conversation to be had, and I don't see any, if we could, let's go ahead and take a vote on moving this forward to the full commission. Again, I'm going to call your name, and if you will please respond with a yay, nay, or abstain. Commissioner Smith.
Yay.
Commissioner Nuana.
Yay.
Commissioner Opstad.
Yay.
Commissioner Hughes.
Yay.
Commissioner DeZenzo.
Yay.
Okay, and my vote is a yay as well. So that passes unanimously. Carla, is there any public comment to be read regarding this agenda item?
No.
Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to move on to item 5. Okay, I skipped a step. Sorry about that. No public comment for item 5. Okay.
No, but I'm sorry. There wasn't any submitted, but if anyone from the public would like to speak, please raise your hand now. Or if you are calling in via phone, please press *9. Okay, I see none.
Okay, thank you. So as you may remember, organizations awarded a fiscal year 21 OSP or CCSD funding that could not fulfill their scope of services were given the opportunity to decline their award before contracting with the city. What I'm going to do now is turn the meeting over to Jonathan Gluss, who is going to present this item and to discuss next steps.
Thank you, Ann. Formally, good morning to everyone. This is not new information for most of you. We are formally bringing it to you at this meeting to allow us to move forward to City Council later this month. But for purposes of record in the public, if I could quickly give a little context. Going back to last spring, after COVID began, this committee and ultimately Arts Commission very quickly responded to the sector and supported our work to minimize as many gateways as possible to get funding to our FY20 organizations as quickly as possible. And that was very successful. While we were working on that, while we were working on the guidelines for FY21, none of us knew how long COVID was going to last. Excuse me. So we moved forward with our standard guidelines being an organization that applies for funding, is, because this is a contract for services with the city, is and receives the contract, must be in compliance and deliver the service that they're contracted to do. However, we knew that this was going to be in an unusual year, and especially for our CCSD contractors, we knew that it was going to be a year with a lot of questions. At that point, we didn't understand how philanthropy was going to respond to the organizations, and none of us knew how long COVID was going to be with us. But staff has been very aware of the counsel of this body in particular, reminding us that the funds that are not allocated are not held over to the next year. So if an organization does not claim funds, it doesn't go into a reserve for the next year. It's essentially lost. It goes back to the general fund at the end of the year, and it is not funding that staff can use in a different way, because it goes to City Council for approval. Just reminding everyone for the record, every May, there's actually a list of the organizations that have been recommended by the Arts Commission that go to City Council. City Council literally approves that contract and the contract amount. So we don't have the capacity to simply redirect funds mid-year, either to programming activities or to a different type of grant or contract. So for this year, we have been tracking very closely with our partners. I try not to call them contractors. Our partners, to see their how they're doing financially, but also in specific, whether or not they can really comply with the scope of the contract. We gave them until the end of August to tell us formally if they could deliver the contract. About 12 organizations declined by the end of August. Just for perspective, there tends to be maybe one each year that cannot comply. So this was unusual. In October, as you know, we shared the study that was conducted by University of San Diego that looked at the financial health of our contract organizations, and it was not healthy. During that time, staff continued to work with the organizations to really track, and again, especially the CCSD, the viability for them to produce programs, festivals, etc. We gave them some leeway this fall because it has been such a difficult season. At the end of the day, as of last week, 17 organizations have not been able to move forward with their contract. That has resulted in about $250,000 in unclaimed funds. So what we would like to do is go to City Council and request a redirection of those funds to the existing organizations that have already been approved for funding this year. And that takes us to the next slide. The reason why we need to do that is because we don't have the timing. We don't have the time to go through another panel process, an application process. We would literally have to go to City Council, ask to redirect the funds, and then run a panel process and then contract. We literally don't have the time to do that. What we can do is reallocate the funds within the organizations that were already approved for FY21. That's at 168 organizations. What we're proposing here is that organizations that were approved for FY21, and I'd like to underscore, staff is recommending that that would only be arts and culture organizations, so it would not extend to service social service organizations. It would not extend to business improvement districts, etc. It would be extended to arts and culture organizations to support salaries, fees for artists, personnel, contract personnel costs, facility costs for responding to COVID, and then direct costs associated with responding to COVID-19 and reopening to the public. So those are the kind of the three buckets that we'd like to scope, or I'm sorry, to provide as the parameters for an application process. Carla, can you go to the next slide, please? Another important point. These would be organizations that are headquartered inside the city. As you all know, there's less than 10, but there are a handful of organizations outside of the city that provide services inside the city. This is to invest in the organizations that are inside the city of San Diego. Those are the only comments on this slide. Next slide, please. The award amounts would be about $15,000 each. We felt like that was a good enough amount of money that we could, that it's viable, but it isn't so much that is going to overwhelm the smaller organizations, because they'll only have about 3 months to perform the scope of services for these contracts. We'd like to organize, review panels very much like our arts education panels over the past few years. So we would go to the existing list of panelists from FY21, invite panelists from that group. They were to review applications and recommend up to 18 organizations. For us to do this, we need to move forward and go to City Council for their approval later in the month. So we're asking for your endorsement today, and then we'll move to City Council. And that's the overview. Happy to answer any questions, input.
And there's no vote required today. This is simply an information item. Do I understand that correctly?
That's right. And that's because the funds have already been allocated to these organizations. So we're looking for your endorsement on the process.
Okay, thank you for that. Commissioners, do we have input or thoughts or suggestions? Let's see, Commissioner Opstead.
So just for full transparency, Jonathan, I believe you said there were 17 organizations now that declined all of the funding for FY21, is that correct?
Yeah, I want to confirm that with Carla. Carla, it's 17, correct?
Correct.
So
yes.
Actually, I'll clarify, it's actually 18 now. There's 18 organizations, 15 that were CCSD and 3 that are OSP.
Thank you.
Thank you,
yes.
Christine.
Thank you. And the other part of that is, of those, the events that were supposed to be planned and did not happen, there were still costs related to that. Did they give up? Was it a use it or lose it, like 100%? Were they able to use a little bit? I'm just trying to make sure that I understand as we move on, because this is unprecedented times, and we know how difficult it is for so many of our partners. And many people roll up their sleeves like, hey, look, you need it more than we need it. But I just want to make sure that everybody understands all aspects of this transaction, to make sure that if we are asked about it, we are able to properly explain it.
Yeah, that is such a great question. So because these are contracts for services that are very specific, it is unfortunately it isn't a use it or lose it. It's a perform the scope of services or don't.
Now with the virtual, I'm sorry.
So literally when they applied last spring, they proposed their scope of services. It was approved by you all, approved by City Council. So unfortunately, we don't have the administrative wiggle room to negotiate it down. That would be, I thank you for bringing that up. It would be great to be able to say, here's $10,000 for costs incurred. The city procurement process doesn't allow us to do that, unfortunately.
And I agree 100%. You can't say that you're funded for one thing and you do something else. And we talk about transparency, we need to understand that. What I was just going is some of our partners got really creative with virtual events, and they still have staffing issues and additional technology brought on because of this, and they really still try to engage all of San Diego as we were all quarantined at home. So I just needed that clarification. So thank you very much, Jonathan.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'll give you an example of this. Even some of the very largest organizations like Pride, because they're not producing a festival, they've really struggled with this. They have staff in place. They do online readings. I mean, they're quite active, but they're not producing a parade, which is what we fund.
That's exactly what I was thinking about, and thinking about how many millions of people it affects, or hundreds of thousands of people it affects. And so thank you very much for that. And I know it's disappointing not being able to support everybody, but we have to be consistent. And as long as all of our partners understand that, then I'm 100% supportive. So thank you for that clarification.
Okay, Commissioner Hughes.
I was just wondering, Jonathan, if this will imperil any future, once COVID is behind us and these organizations are able to request funds again in the future, will this be a black mark on their record, as it were?
Thank you for that question. If they met the date of August 31st, there was no mark, as you stated. Perfect. After that, there is. However, we're being very generous with the organizations this year. So literally, if our system is set up through the application review and compliance process, that if an organization can receive as many as 3 administrative marks, we actually use that term, before it impacts the amount of funding that they receive. So the worst case scenario is it would be 1 mark. So it really doesn't impact their capacity or potential for funding.
Great, thank you.
Commissioner Poutre.
Hi, thank you. Jonathan, did we talk the other day and agree that we were going to limit this program to a specific size organization with an annual? But in other words, I seem to remember that we had an upper limit for annual budget to apply?
Janet, we did. We had that conversation. We had two conversations. We had the conversation of restricting it to a ceiling budget size, and we also had the conversation about restricting it to organizations that did not receive PPE. We went back and looked at the number of organizations that have not received PPE, and the truth is, the majority of our contractors did receive PPE. So the majority of our applicants would be ineligible of all sizes. So staff is recommending that we don't use those two criteria and instead focus on the immediate needs of COVID and staffing.
Okay, thank you.
Jonathan, are you saying PPE? Do you mean PPP?
PPP.
Okay. Oui, mademoiselle. Okay, any other comments? I think staff has done a really thoughtful job of looking into this, and I'll be really excited to know that the city council moves this forward. The time horizon again, Jonathan, this will be going to council here within this month or the beginning of next month?
I'm looking at Christine Jones right now. I believe it's, we're hoping to get it on the docket for the 25th of January. Is that right, Christine?
So we're hoping actually for the 26th.
26th.
If we don't make that docket, then it will probably be assigned to the docket after that. So we can certainly let you guys know once it's docketed.
Okay, and is there anything that you need for any of us as commissioners to do to give this the best chance of success so that this money ends up back in the hands of the arts organizations?
Absolutely. Reaching out to your council members is a great idea, especially considering the fact that this is this will be within the first 10 council member meetings or council meetings for the new members. We haven't had briefings yet, so this will be brand new information. And for many of them, our not always transparent process is completely new to them.
So in that instance, would it make sense for staff to help organize something where there's a coordinated effort to make sure that we have the opportunity to, alongside with staff, to educate the council offices?
Tyler, did you want to take that?
Thank you. And Chair, you had the exact question I was going to ask, so thank you for asking. Maybe we should, because I was just responding to Belle's email earlier today, Jonathan, maybe we should just make this a task, an item on next week's advocacy meeting, and that we at the advocacy team will just take this on and spend a week just shooting out some materials to our city council electeds. If staff does have anything that can help us demystify the process, even if it's just these slides, breaking it down, because it can be for the uninitiated a little opaque. So if we can add a little more transparency to that, or a little understanding and context, that would be very helpful.
Absolutely, happy to do that.
Okay, thank you for that. Commissioner DeZenzo?
Yeah, I was kind of thinking along the same lines, but for me, like I have I don't want to say a personal relationship, but I have a good relationship with a number of the staff on Council Member 2's staff. And this is a lot, like if I was to contact them, I would be rambling on about stuff. And I was hoping that maybe what we could do is get together like a brief paragraph, or something that I could submit to them, and make it my own, obviously, but something that would encompass the gist of what we're asking, and then I could relay that information to Council District 2 so that I don't forget to mention anything. you know, it's always good to kind of have a little bit of a script to start with for me. Otherwise I tend to ramble. So, so if that could be provided to me, that would be great. I would love that.
Happy to do so.
Okay, and Commissioner Opstead?
Thank you. Whenever possible, I try to make data-driven decisions. And so when we are providing that data for, if it can be for certain council districts, how it has directly impacted our creative partners, any of that extra information are some really, really good talking points. And if it could also be for all of San Diego, but also for specific councils, that'd be incredibly helpful.
Okay. Okay, terrific. Thank you very much for all of that. Now we're going to be moving on to staff reports. Carla, is there any public comment with respect to this item?
No. If any member of the public would like to speak, please raise your hand. Or if you are calling via a phone, please press *9. No, I think we're good.
Okay, at this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our executive director to share staff reports.
Again, good morning, everyone. Thank you for your time this morning. It's always great to start the morning with you all. And especially when Keith is calling in from the Hall of Justice and Tyler is calling in from a stage somewhere on the planet. Always good to see we're out and about. I have a few informal updates, but I'd like to first make sure that Christine Jones has an opportunity to do any updates. Christine, do you have anything this morning?
Sure, I can update everyone. So good morning, commissioners. Just a quick update. As you recall, the city released an emergency general operating support relief effort for arts and cultural organizations that were disproportionately impacted in communities of color. So that was a very small amount of money that we were able to receive from the California Arts Council to basically re-grant. So a panel was convened in November where applications were evaluated, and the city's now in the process of distributing those awards. If you recall, it was $1,500 awards, so small amounts, to 10 organizations. So 10 organizations will be getting their checks in the mail very soon. And those organizations will be posting that on our website, but I'm happy to run through them if you'd like to know those 10 organizations.
And underscoring, Christine, that's a special allocation from the California Arts Council.
Correct. So that was money that we received from as a state local partner, specifically to re-grant to organizations impacted by COVID serving communities of color. And that is my update for today.
Thank you, Christine. I believe Keith had a question.
Yeah, I just wanted to know the list of the recipients. I think that's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, that was 10 organizations. So Ballet Folklorica, BOCON, Common Ground, Community Actors Theater, Disco Riot, Mariachi Scholarship Foundation, Prophet World Beat, Sherman Heights Community Center, Teatro Mascara Magica, and the Hill Street Country Club. The organizations had to be based in San Diego County based on the funding stream as well.
I think it's important to point out also that in addition to being countywide, there are organizations in that list that are in San Diego that have not applied to our funding program for a long time. So this was a great opportunity for us to kind of invite those organizations back into our system. Carla, do you have any updates?
Hi, yes, we are currently in the cure period. If you are familiar with this phase, this is after the RFQ closes, staff internally reviews all of the applications submitted by the organizations, and we take this time to review eligibility. And the cure period is when we actually send out emails to every single organization, letting them know their status. If they have to cure, then that means that they have to go in and fix something in their application. They have until the January 12th to make these fixes. And then after that, we'll be able to know exactly which organizations were deemed eligible to receive the option to renew, or were deemed eligible to move on to the request for proposals. So I'm navigating that world right now. It's really fun. It's keeping me busy. But that's going to end on the 12th, and then on the 15th, which is next Friday, we'll be opening up the RFP, the request for proposals. So organizations will have the opportunity to fill that out if they make it to that phase.
Thank you, Carla. The only thing that I'd like to add to Christine and Carla's reports is that we firstly, everyone knows that we're working without our colleague Leticia. So there's a bit of a team deficit, but we're using this as an opportunity, and I'll speak personally, to again really dig into the contracts, and in particular, we've been spending a lot of one-on-one time with the organizations to better understand how they are responding and coping with COVID and the financial implications of COVID. As you can imagine, their AOIs there's tremendous fluctuations in the AOIs this year, and we can imagine there will be next year. So we're spending a lot of time speaking one-on-one with senior staff, but also the financial staff to better understand how they're reporting to us, where the glitches are, where it's a challenge, what they anticipate in the next year, so we can bring all that information back to you as we start working on refinements for the program in February, March, and April. So nothing to report to you today formally, except that next year is going to be another bumpy ride, as you can imagine. So we'll have some real baseline reporting in February. I want to make sure you understand how many organizations really had big variances, the trends we're seeing, and what kind of funding is coming in and what kind of funding is not, and how that does impact the AOIs. And then, as you can imagine, we do have a very large number of new applicants this year. So staff is very intentionally watching the AOIs, the fluctuations in the AOIs, and then the fact that we have these new organizations in the hopper, as it were, in the system, in anticipation of how that is going to shift funding. So that's just an overview of what we're thinking about right now, and we're very eager to get into work with you all in February, March, and April. That's really it, Anne.
Okay, terrific. Thank you so much, everyone. The last thing we have is the question of whether there's any business for future agendas that anyone would like to see. Okay, with that, a big thank you. I think we're going to be starting executive session at 10 o'clock. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So with that, we'll adjourn the meeting and look forward to seeing some of you back for the executive committee meeting. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks.
Have a great weekend.
Thanks, Anne. See you
Great to see everybody.
See you in a bit.
Bye all.
Thank you, John.